Sexual alchemy turned into spiritual enslavement. Not every orgasm is sacred. In recent years, spiritual sexuality has exploded in popularity. Ancient practices like Tantra, Taoist sexual arts, and various neo-tantric approaches have been repackaged and marketed as pathways to enlightenment, healing, and transcendence. Online courses, weekend workshops, and social media influencers promise transformation through sexual energy manipulation and ritualized intimacy. Yet beneath this renaissance of sacred sexuality lies a troubling paradox. Practices meant to liberate have created new forms of dogma, shame, and spiritual materialism. What begins as sexual alchemy, the transmutation of primal energy into higher awareness, often devolves into spiritual enslavement, another set of shoulds dictating how we should experience our bodies and sexuality. The commercialization of sacred sexuality. The ancient traditions that form the foundation of modern sacred sexuality practices weren't designed as weekend workshops or Instagram-friendly techniques. They emerged within comprehensive spiritual systems with specific cosmologies, ethical frameworks, and years of preparatory practices. Today's version often skips straight to the exciting parts. Promises of hour-long orgasms, techniques for manifesting through sexual energy, methods for healing trauma through pleasure, practices for awakening Kundalini energy. These aren't inherently problematic. Problems arise when these practices are 1. Stripped from their cultural and philosophical contexts. 2. Marketed as quick fixes for complex emotional and spiritual issues. 3. Presented as universally beneficial regardless of an individual's psychological readiness. The new sexual orthodoxy. 4. Used to create hierarchies of spiritual sexual achievement. Perhaps most ironically, traditions intended to transcend dogma have created their own rigid belief systems. Consider these common assertions in modern sacred sexuality circles. Real orgasm should be full-body experiences, anything less is merely a genital sneeze. All sexual energy should be transmuted rather than wasted, ignoring the simple joy of release. Every sexual encounter should be approached as a ceremony. Spontaneity becomes suspect. Pleasure must always serve a higher purpose. Enjoyment for its own sake becomes spiritually immature. Specific breathing patterns, visualizations, or physical techniques are required for truly sacred sexuality. These beliefs create a spiritual scoreboard where some experiences are elevated as sacred while others are demoted to merely physical or even unconscious. The result? A new form of sexual inadequacy where practitioners feel they're failing spiritually if they don't experience cosmic union during every encounter. The shadow of spiritual bypassing. When sexuality becomes primarily a spiritual practice, it creates perfect conditions for spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas to avoid uncomfortable emotions or authentic experiences. Examples in sacred sexuality include using tantric practices to avoid confronting actual relationship issues, framing natural sexual preferences as blocks or karma that need healing, bypassing genuine consent conversations through vague appeals to following energy, avoiding the messiness of human sexuality by intellectualizing it into abstract energy systems, using spiritual frameworks to shame partners who aren't interested in the same practices. Many seekers find themselves caught in cycles where their natural sexual responses are pathologized as unspiritual, creating new layers of shame more sophisticated than conventional religious shame but no less limiting. Reclaiming authentic sexual expressio. The liberation promised by sexual alchemy doesn't come from perfect technique or achieving specific states. True sexual freedom emerges from authenticity and integration, where some sexual experiences may indeed be profoundly spiritual, opening to transcendent states of unity consciousness. Others might be playful and light, simple expressions of joy and connexio. Some might be primal and intense, raw expressions of desire without spiritual pretense. Others might be quick and functional, meeting basic needs without ceremony. Some might even be mediocre or unsatisfying, and that's part of the human experience too. The revolutionary idea isn't that sex should always be sacred, but that all authentic sexual expressions are valid parts of our humanity. Beyond the sacred, profane dichotomy. The statement "not every orgasm is sacred" isn't a denial of sex's spiritual potential. Rather, it's a rejection of the false dichotomy that divides sexual experiences into sacred good, conscious, spiritual, and profane bad, unconscious, merely physical. This dualistic thinking, 1. Creates unnecessary performance pressure. 2. establishes new hierarchies of sexual achievement. 3. Diminishes the value of simple pleasure. 4. Imposes spiritual agendas onto what might best be experienced directly. 5. Often repackages traditional sexual shame in spiritual language. The alchemy of integratio. True sexual alchemy doesn't separate the spiritual from the physical or elevate one aspect of sexuality above others. It integrates all dimensions of our sexual nature: physical pleasure and biological drives, emotional connection and intimacy, creative expression and play, spiritual communion and transcendence. This integration doesn't happen through techniques but through presence, the capacity to be fully with whatever arises in sexual experiences without judgment, agenda, or performance pressure. Conclusion: from spiritual performance to authentic expressio. Liberation comes not from performing sexuality correctly according to any system but from authentic expression aligned with your current experience and desires. Some days that might include hour-long tantric practices. Other days it might be quick, playful encounters with no spiritual framing whatsoever. The truly revolutionary approach to sexuality isn't forcing every experience into a spiritual framework but allowing each experience to be exactly what it is. Sometimes that means recognizing that an orgasm is just an orgasm, a moment of physical pleasure and release, and that's perfectly enough. When we release the pressure for every sexual experience to be transformative, transcendent, or healing, we create space for authentic connection with ourselves and others. And paradoxically, it's often in that space of no spiritual agenda that the most profound spiritual experiences naturally arise.